In the year 1849, during the California Gold Rush, a lonely miner named Thomas Walker worked deep inside the cold hills near a small camp town called Dry Valley. He wasn't rich, not even close. Most days he dug for gold and found only rocks and dust, but he didn't give up. He believed something big was waiting for him underground. That evening, the sun was going down, and the other miners had already returned to their tents. But Thomas stayed, deeper in the mine than anyone had ever gone. He wiped sweat from his face, swung his pickaxe, and then crack. His pick hit something hard. Not stone, not gold. Something different. He leaned in and saw a green light shining through the cracks in the rock. It wasn't fire, and it wasn't lantern light. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Thomas had never seen anything like it. His heart started to beat faster, but he didn't stop. He hit the rock again and again until a large chunk broke away. Behind it was a smooth walnut like any natural cave wall. This one was carved. It had symbols glowing softly in green and gold. Strange writing, like no language Thomas had ever seen. It didn't look human at all. He reached out and touched the wall. The moment his fingers touched it, the whole mine shook. The glow got brighter, and the wall began to move. A loud grinding sound echoed through the cave as a hidden door opened. Slowly in front of him, cold air rushed out of the darkness beyond it. Thomas stood there, frozen, holding his breath. He looked behind him, but no one was there. The other miners were long gone. He should have run, but something pulled him forward. A whisper in his head told him to go inside. He took a step, then another, and walked through the stone door. What he saw inside was something no human had ever seen before. The room was large, like a grand hall built deep underground. Tall stone pillars stood on both sides, each one carved with alien symbols. At the end of the hall was a raised platform, and on it lay a glowing crystal pod. Inside the pod, he saw her, a tall, silver-skinned woman with long hair like flowing metal. She wasn't moving, but her body glowed faintly. Thomas didn't understand what he was looking at. Was it a statue? A coffin? A machine? Then the voice came, not through the air, but inside his head. "You have awakened me," it said, calm and deep. Thomas stepped back, his hands shaking. He looked at the woman again, and now her fingers were moving. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing like two stars trapped in crystal. She looked at him, and he felt something strange, like his mind was being read. Who are you?" he whispered, but she didn't speak with her mouth. "I am Alraya," the voice answered, "daughter of the stars, protector of lost worlds." The room began to warm as her body started glowing brighter. Symbols on the walls lit up, one by one, like a machine coming back to life. Thomas didn't know what to do. He was just a miner, a man with a shovel and a dream. Now he had found something impossible, an alien goddess sleeping under the earth for who knew how long. The ground rumbled again, but this time it wasn't. From him, something else had heard her wake up, something far away, something not friendly. The green glow blinked once, then twice, like a signal had been sent. Out there, in the dark sky, above the stars, something began to move. Back in the cave, Thomas stared at the glowing figure. She looked strong but tired, powerful but trapped, and somehow she looked at him like he was more than just a miner, like he had a purpose, like she needed him. The silence grew heavy as her voice returned once more. "You broke the seal," she said, "and now the stars will come looking." Thomas took a deep breath. He had no idea what any of it meant. But something inside him whispered that the world had just changed forever, and it started with one man, one pickaxe, and a glow in the dark that should never have been found. Thomas stood still, his breath caught in his chest. The strange glowing woman inside the pod was now awake. Her silver eyes watched him like she had known him for years. But she did not speak with her mouth. Her voice was inside his mind, calm, powerful, and full of history. "I am Alraya," she said, "last guardian of the Sarati Empire, exiled beneath your earth." Thomas did not understand all the words, but he felt them. He knew she was not from this world. She had power, deep and ancient, and yet something inside her felt broken. She tried to move, but her limbs were weak. Thomas stepped closer, nervous but brave. "Do you need help?" he asked. Arya blinked slowly, her skin shining like moonlight. "Your world is cold, small, but your voice, it is kind," she replied. He reached out his hand. Not knowing if it was the right thing, she touched his fingers gently, and a flash of light passed between them. Images filled his mind, stars burning, giant ships floating in space, battles in skies of red and blue. He saw her flying among stars, leading armies, saving planets, but then came fire, betrayal, and a fall through darkness until she landed here, buried under Earth's crust. Trapped in sleep for 1,000 years, Thomas gasped and stepped back. The vision's fading. Araya lowered her hand and looked away. "They turned on me," she said. "They feared my strength, so they sealed me here." Thinking no one would ever find me, Thomas wiped the sweat from his forehead, trying to make sense of it all. "So, why me?" he asked. "Why now?" She stood slowly, her body glowing brighter with each breath. "Your hand opened the gate," she said. "Only a mind with no hate, no hunger for power could break the lock." Thomas gave a weak smile. "I was just looking for gold." Arya tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. "Gold is what brings your kind here, but you've stayed because of wonder," she said. "That is rare." As they spoke, the chamber around them shifted. Symbols along the walls turned blue, showing new images, star maps, weapons, warnings. Thomas stared in awe, not understanding, but feeling the importance. "Is this your ship?" he asked. Arya shook her head. "No ship. This is a tomb and a temple, a prison made to look holy." Suddenly, she touched one of the glowing symbols, and the floor began to shake. A small panel opened nearby, revealing a strange box glowing with swirling lights. Araya walked to it slowly, her steps still unsure. She opened the box and pulled out a long silver staff with lines of blue running through it. When she held it, her glow became brighter, her back straighter, her strength returning. Thomas stepped back, watching in silence. She looked taller now, more complete. "This was my link to the stars," she said. "Now I feel them waking." She looked toward the stone ceiling, far above the mine. "They will feel me too." "Who?" Thomas asked quietly. Alraya's eyes narrowed, glowing with a sharp light. "My enemies," she said. "The ones who hunted me across galaxies. They will see I am no longer sleeping." Thomas felt a chill in his bones. "What? What will they do when they know you're awake?" "They will come," she said, "to kill me. And anything that helps me." Thomas's heart sank. "But Earth? We don't have anything to fight them." Araya stepped closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we must prepare," she said. Together, outside the chamber, the ground above the mine rumbled again. No human noticed yet, but deep in space, a red signal blinked like a warning. Something had changed, something had been broken, and far beyond Earth, eyes were turning toward a small blue planet once again. Back underground, Arya sat down on a stone bench. Her eyes looked tired, her energy still rebuilding. Thomas sat beside her, still confused but strangely calm. He looked at her, then at the glowing walls. "You're not just some alien," he said. "You're like a goddess." Araya smiled faintly, her eyes softer now. "Once I was," she whispered, "but now I am only what I choose to be." Thomas didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure. His life and the world's future had just changed forever. The stars above California shone quietly that night. The campfires around Dry Valley flickered as miners rested, but deep underground, in the hidden chamber, something powerful was waking. Thomas sat beside Alraya, the alien goddess he had set. Free, she had once ruled galaxies, fought wars in the stars, and protected lost worlds. Now, she sat quietly in the shadows of an earth cave, regaining her strength. But something inside her had changed. She was not only waking from sleep, she was remembering who she was. The glowing staff in her hands pulsed with life. Every minute she held it, her body grew stronger. Her silver skin shimmered, and her long, flowing hair moved as if touched by a breeze that wasn't there. Her voice was still calm, but her words carried power. This planet, it is raw, wild, but full of light, she said, looking toward the ceiling. And danger, Thomas nodded, still trying to understand it all. I never believed in aliens, he said with a soft laugh. But now, I've had tea with one. Alraya smiled slightly, though her eyes stayed focused. I am not just an alien, she said. I was a commander, a guardian, and now, maybe something more. Suddenly, the walls around them glowed again. One of the symbols began to flash. Red. Alraya stood quickly, raising her staff. No, she whispered. They felt it. Thomas stood too, alarmed. What's going on? He asked. Alraya touched the symbol, and an image formed in the air, a projection of space. A cluster of stars, and a small red light moving fast. They are called the Zarn, she said, hunters of power, destroyers of peace. The red light moved toward Earth like a burning comet. Alraya turned to Thomas, her eyes fierce. When they find me, they will destroy this place, not for gold or land, but to erase my name. Thomas clenched his fists. You saved worlds, he said. You don't deserve to be erased. She looked at him quietly. That is why I must awaken. Fully, she replied with a deep breath. Alraya stepped toward the center of the chamber. A ring of symbols glowed beneath her feet. She raised her staff high, and the air around her changed. Wind swirled without sound. Energy wrapped around her like fire. She lifted off the ground, her body glowing brighter than ever before. Thomas covered his eyes, but still watched through his fingers. She was no longer just a survivor. She was becoming a force again, the ancient systems inside. The temple came alive. Stone turned to light, and dust floated upward like stars. In that moment, memories rushed into her mind. She saw her people, her soldiers, her fall, and the faces of those who betrayed her. The Zarn had lied, had poisoned her council, and sent her crashing to Earth. But now, she remembered every detail. As the energy died down, Alraya floated gently back to the ground. She opened her eyes, and now they were like twin galaxies, deep and endless. She was awake, fully, and Thomas could feel it. Even the ground seemed to breathe with her. He stepped forward, unsure of what to say. You're glowing more than ever, he said with a nervous grin. Alraya looked at him, her voice stronger than before. I have returned, she said, and I will not run again. Just then, a rumble echoed through the chamber. Rocks fell from above, and the air buzzed with static. Alraya turned quickly, her staff ready. The beacon I triggered has reached them, she said. We have little time. Thomas nodded. What do we do? He asked. Alraya stepped toward him and gently placed the staff in his hands. He felt its weight, but also its power like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. You are not a warrior, she said, but you have the heart of one. He looked up at her, surprised. But I'm just a miner. She smiled again, warmer this time. A miner who found light where others saw only stone. Above them, something passed through the sky. Fast and fiery, the first scout ship had arrived. The Zarn had come. Back in the chamber, Arya lifted her hand, and new doors opened tunnels she had once sealed shut. Behind them were machines unlike anything on Earth, Leon tools, armor, devices of defense. Thomas stared at them, eyes wide. "We're going to fight, aren't we?" he asked. "We are," Araya replied, "and Earth will see its first war from the stars." The night sky above Dry Valley looked peaceful. The stars sparkled, the wind was soft, and the miners slept in their tents without worry. But something high above the clouds was coming fast, silent, and full of hate. A small Zarn scout ship cut through Earth's atmosphere like a blade. It had no lights, no signals, only one purpose: hunt and destroy. Inside the ship sat two tall creatures covered in dark armor with insect-like faces and glowing red eyes. They didn't speak like humans, but their thoughts were sharp and cold. The goddess breathes again. One of them said in their language, "We enter here." Meanwhile, deep beneath the hills, Thomas and Araya prepared. The tunnels hidden behind the temple had revealed strange alien tools, floating orbs that hummed with light, long rods that sparked when touched, and armor that shaped itself to the wearer's body. Thomas was amazed, but also scared. "How can we stop them?" he asked. "We don't even know how many are coming." Araya stood calm, her body now fully glowing with power. "They never come alone," she said. "But their first ship will be small. It always is." She lifted a floating orb and closed her eyes. "Let us see," she whispered. The orb hovered upward, rising through the rock like a ghost. When it reached the surface, it shot high into the sky and blinked once. Inside it, an eye opened. Alri's eye, glowing blue. She saw the Zarn scout ship as it hovered silently above the hills, its wings folding as it prepared to land. "They're here," she said, "and more will follow." Thomas's hands shook as he picked up one of the alien tools. It shaped itself like a rifle, but had no trigger, just a glowing crystal in the center. When he touched it, the crystal pulsed, as if recognizing him. "I don't know how to fight," he admitted. Araya looked at him gently. "You know how to stand," she said. "That is enough." Outside the mine, the Zarn ship landed quietly in the woods. The two hunters stepped out, scanning the ground with red lights from their helmets. They moved fast, following the energy trail left by Araya's awakening. Their claws clicked with each step, and every animal nearby ran in fear. They found the hidden mine entrance within minutes. Thomas and Araya stood by the main chamber, now waiting. She had placed protective symbols on the walls, and the floating orbs hovered in a circle around them. The air was heavy, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Then the sound came: metal footsteps in the tunnel. Slow and steady. "They're here," Thomas said quietly. Araya raised her staff, and the orbs turned red. The first Zarn hunter stepped into the chamber. It looked like a nightmare, taller than a man, its armor covered in scars from many battles. It raised a dark weapon shaped like a clawed arm. Before it could fire, one of the orbs shot a bolt of blue energy at it. The creature screamed, not in pain, but in rage. The second hunter jumped in, swinging a blade that shimmered like ice. Araya moved like a wave of light. Fast and smooth, her staff met the blade, sparks flying in all directions. Thomas aimed his alien rifle and thought only one thing: fire. The weapon responded to his mind and released a burst of white energy. The blast hit the wall, missing the Zarn, but the shock made it stumble. One of the orbs flew to Thomas's shoulder and hovered there, blinking fast. "Let it guide you," Araya said. With the orb's help, Thomas aimed again, and this time his shot hit the second Zarn. Directly in the chest, the creature roared and fell back. But wasn't dead yet. "These things are tough," Thomas said, gritting his teeth. Araya focused her energy, her body now floating slightly above the ground. She raised both hands, and the chamber's walls lit up with ancient power. Symbols glowed, and beams of light shot down, trapping the first Zarn in a prison of energy. It screeched and struggled, but couldn't move. The second one tried to run, but Thomas stepped in front of it, holding the rifle. "Not this time," he said, and fired again. The blast hit the hunter straight in the head. The creature collapsed with a heavy thud. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by Thomas's shaky breath. Alria lowered her hands, and the light faded. The first hunter was now unconscious. "Locked in a glowing cage, they were only scouts," she said. "The real danger comes next." Thomas wiped sweat from his face. "So what do we do now?" Arya walked to him and placed a glowing mark on his chest, an alien symbol that burned but didn't hurt. "Now we build," she said. "We must make Earth ready before the sky burns." And above them, in the dark, silent space beyond the Serm, the stars, a larger Zarn ship turned its nose toward Earth. The hunt had begun. The morning sun rose over Dry Valley, lighting the hills in gold and orange. To the miners, it was just another day of digging, sweating, and hoping for luck. But beneath the hills, in secret tunnels, war was quietly being prepared. Alria, now fully awakened, walked beside Thomas through a narrow path in the canyon. They had defeated the Zarn scouts, but that was only the beginning. The real army was still coming, and Earth was not ready. Thomas had an idea friend who could help. Someone who worked with metal and fire. Her name was Clara Boone, a blacksmith and gunsmith in the nearby town of Bitter Ridge. She was known for her sharp tongue and sharper tools. When Thomas and Alria walked into her workshop, Clara didn't look up from her hammering. "Unless you brought me gold or good whiskey, you can wait," she said. Thomas smiled nervously. "We brought something better kind of." Clara finally looked up, wiping sweat from her brow. Her eyes landed on Alria, and for a moment she just stared. The alien woman stood tall, silver skin shining, eyes like stars. "Holy hell," Clara whispered. "You ain't from around here?" "No," Arya answered, her voice calm and clear. "I am from the stars." Clara dropped her hammer, blinked twice, then laughed. "Well, damn, Tom, you always did bring me strange trouble." They sat together, and Thomas told her everything: the glowing mine, the temple, the Zarn hunters, and what was coming next. Clara didn't laugh this time. She listened carefully, and when they finished, she said only one thing. "What do you need me to build?" Down in her workshop, Clara had tools Thomas had never seen before. Steam-powered drills, gear-operated presses, and custom-made rifles. Arya examined them with interest, then raised her hand. With a wave of her fingers, she lifted metal parts into the air and reshaped them without touching. Clara's jaw dropped. "Now that," she said, "is cheating." But Arya wasn't trying to impress. She was testing, learning, combining her alien tech with human tools. Together, the three of them began to work. Clara melted old rifles and reforged them with alien crystals. Alria added energy channels inside the barrels, making them shoot light instead of bullets. Thomas helped wherever he could, lifting, hammering, holding, watching, learning. Days passed, and the shop filled with new weapons, hybrid guns, glowing traps, armor that adjusted to the wearer's body. Each one was unique, part Earth, part star. "Will this be enough?" Thomas asked one night. Arya looked at the sky, her expression unreadable. "Enough to slow them," she said. "Not enough to stop them." That night, Clara brought out an old, locked chest. She opened it, revealing a large iron exosuits, something she had built years ago but never finished. "I was going to use this for mining," she said. "But maybe it's good for fighting too." Alria touched it, and blue light flowed into the joints. It came alive, standing tall like a mechanical warrior. Thomas stepped forward. "I'll wear it," he said. Clara raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" He nodded. "I'm no soldier, but I've already fought one of them and I'm still breathing." Arya looked at him and smiled faintly. Then the suit shall carry your courage." She said. The next morning, they moved the new weapons. To the mine, they set traps in the tunnels, placed sensors near the entrance, and turned the chamber into a fortress. But time was running out. All Raya could feel it, the Zarn fleet drawing closer, their hate growing heavier in the town of Bitter. Ridge Clara began to gather a small group of people she trusted, friends, hunters, even a few ex-soldiers. She told them strange truths, showed them what they had built, and promised one thing: if we don't fight, we'll be dust. Some left afraid, but a few stayed, their faces hard. They had seen strange lights in the sky too, heard whispers from the hills, and now they were ready to stand with a miner, a gunsmith, and a goddess. Thomas looked at them and felt something rise in his chest, not fear, but pride. These weren't soldiers, but they had something stronger than training. They had reason, they had home, and they had each other. As night fell once more, Aurea stood at the edge of the mine entrance. She looked at the stars, then at Earth. "I once fought for empires," she said. "Now I fight for a world that gave me a second chance." Thomas stood beside her in his exosuit, glowing softly. "And we fight for the only home we've got," he said. In the sky, another red light appeared. The first of the Zarn warships had entered Earth's orbit. The countdown had begun. The stars vanished behind a black shadow. High above Earth, the Zarn warship arrived. It was massive, like a dark mountain, floating in the sky. No lights, no warnings, just cold silence and power. From beneath the clouds, no one could see it, but Aurea felt it like a cold wind crawling across her skin. Inside the warship, hundreds of Zarn warriors waited, sharp, armored creatures with red eyes and bladed limbs. They prepared to descend, to finish what they started 1,000 years ago. "Target is active," one Zarn said. Planet resistance. Primitive, they did not fear humans. They barely noticed them, but below, inside the gold hills of California, something unexpected waited. Miners with modified guns, hunters wearing glowing armor. "I am a human in an exosuit built from steel and alien light." Thomas stood at the mine entrance, the wind blowing dust past his boots. Clara stood beside him, holding her crystal-powered rifle behind them. A few brave townsfolk tightened their grips on strange new weapons. They had trained for only days, but they had something stronger than time. They had something to lose. Aurea stood on higher ground, her silver body glowing like a star trapped in a human shape. She raised her hand, and the floating orbs lifted into the air. They spread out, scanning the skies, watching for movement. "They're coming," she whispered, "and they will not stop." A loud roar shook the ground. Flaming pods fell from the sky like meteorites, crashing into the hills, one by one. Zarn warriors stepped out, weapons ready, movements sharp and fast. They didn't speak, didn't wait. They attacked. The battle began. The first wave of Zarn charged the mine's outer edge, but the traps exploded before they reached the entrance. Blue fire burst from the rocks, tearing through alien armor. Thomas ran forward in the exosuit, punching one Zarn into the ground. His movements were heavy, but strong. He had never felt power like this. Clara knelt behind a crate and fired her glowing rifle. Every shot made a humming sound as it ripped through the air. Zarn leaped toward her, but a floating orb blocked its path, zapping it with a bolt of energy. She grinned. "Good little buddy," she said, and kept firing. Aurea floated above the battlefield, her staff spinning with light where she moved. The ground cracked and lifted. She sent waves of energy into the enemy ranks, knocking them back like paper in the wind. But for every Zarn that fell, more arrived. Inside the mine, townsfolk fought with whatever they had. A butcher swung an axe lined with alien metal. A young boy used a modified slingshot to fire crystal shards. Even an old preacher stood with a glowing shield. shouting words of courage, but the Zarn were relentless. They pushed harder, surrounding the entrance. Breaking past the traps, Thomas saw Clara fall. Blood on her arm, he roared and charged, knocking Zarn into the stone wall. He stood over Clara and helped her up. "You all right?" "Still got one good hand," she grinned. "Let's make it count." Above, Alraya's glow began to fade. She had used too much energy too fast. A Zarn captain aimed a bladed cannon at her mid-air. It fired a red beam of death, Thomas saw. Before she did, he jumped, using the exosuit to launch himself off a ledge. He tackled Alraya out of the air, the beam grazing his shoulder. They hit the ground hard, the suit groaning under the force. Thomas gasped, pain shooting through his body. Alraya looked at him, surprised and shaken. "You saved me," she said softly. He smiled through clenched teeth. "I owed you one." She reached out and touched the mark on his chest. It flared with blue light, and his wounds began to close. Slowly, but her own energy was nearly gone. More Zarn charged in, 5 of them surrounding the two. Alraya stood, staff raised, but her light was dim before they could strike. A blast of fire hit them from the side. It was Clara back on her feet, holding a heavy energy cannon she had hidden for emergencies. "Back off, freaks!" she shouted, and fired again. The ground shook as the Zarn scattered. Thomas laughed weakly. "Remind me never to make her mad." More explosions echoed across the hills. The humans were pushing back, holding the mine barely. Alraya raised her hand again and summoned her last orb. It hovered over the battlefield and exploded in light. A wave of sound and pressure swept across the field, sending every Zarn flying backward. For a moment, there was silence. Smoke rose from the ground, but human and alien lay still. But the mine stood, the people still standing. The Zarn ship above seemed to pause. They hadn't expected this. Thomas helped Alraya up again. She looked at him, exhausted but proud. "You are not just a miner," she said. "You are the heart of this world." He nodded, looking at the battlefield. "And this dirt," he said, "is ours." Smoke drifted across the broken hills. The sun rose slowly, casting soft light over the battleground. The soil was black with ash, but it held strong. The mine entrance still stood, cracked but not crushed, and from the dust survivors rose Thomas, limped through the ruins in his scorched exosuit. His face was tired, his hands shaking, but his eyes were bright. He saw Clara nearby, arm wrapped in cloth. Dirt across her cheek, she was alive, and so were many others. Not all had made it, but they had one. Alraya stood at the edge of the cliff, her silver body glowing faintly. She stared at the sky where the Zarn warship had vanished only hours ago after their defeat on the ground. The Zarn ship had turned and left silent, bitter, and wounded. But the war wasn't over. It had only been delayed. Thomas walked to her, stopping beside her quietly. "You think they'll come back?" He asked. Arya nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "but not soon, and not without fear." The people of Bitter Ridge gathered at the mine entrance. They looked at the battlefield, the alien machines, the sky above, and they looked at Alraya. With fear, but with awe. They had seen her fight, bleed, protect them like one of their own. A small girl stepped forward and held out a wildflower to Alraya. The goddess took it gently and smiled. The people began to cheer, softly at first, then louder. Thomas watched it all and felt a weight in his chest lift. Later, inside the mine chamber, Arya stood before the crystal staff she had used to awaken. It pulsed softly, calling her back. The orbs floated in a slow circle. "Waiting. The beacon is still active," she said. "If I leave now, I can return to the stars." Thomas looked at the glowing walls, then at her. "You could go home." She turned to him, her face calm but distant. "There's nothing left out there for me," she said. But I can warn others, prepare other worlds. He stepped forward, unsure of what to say. Then, will you go? She didn't answer right away. She walked through the chamber, touching the symbols, the stones, the machines. Memories of her long life whispered through her mind, galaxies burning, lovers lost, thrones betrayed, but now she thought of Clara's laughter, the courage in Thomas's eyes, the flower in her hand. She turned back to him. This place. It gave me something I thought I lost, she said. What's that? Hope Alraya raised the staff and touched the chamber's core. The lights faded. The orbs gently settled into the walls. The gateway to the stars closed with a low hum. She had made her choice. Thomas watched in silence as she stepped toward him. You're staying? She nodded. This world is young, full of chaos and wonder, she said. But it needs protectors, and I will be one. Word spread across the land, quietly, secretly. The miners of Dry Valley and the people of Bitter Ridge said nothing. To outsiders, they kept the story to themselves. A sacred tale of the day the sky tried to kill them and the day a goddess fought back. Clara repaired her workshop, now with alien tools beside her old ones. She built things no other blacksmith could. Sometimes she would look at the stars and say, "Let them come." Thomas returned to mining. But the ground was different now. He no longer searched for gold. He watched the earth, protected it, guarded the hills with quiet eyes. At night, he sat by the mine with Aria beside him. They would speak little, but their silence said everything. She taught him about stars, about gravity fields, and light weapons. He taught her about horses, pancakes, and how to throw a stone just right. It was not romance, was something older, deeper, to souls who had seen different worlds but chose to walk the same dirt. One night, as the moon rose, full and silver, Aria placed her hand on Thomas's shoulder. They will come again, one day, she said. He nodded. We'll be ready. She smiled, her eyes glowing softly. Together and far above them. In a dark corner of the galaxy, the Zarn High Council whispered in anger. They had lost not only a battle but a weapon they could never control again. Alraya was free, and she had chosen the one place they never expected, Earth. Not for its baths, riches, not for its power, but because one man had dug through dirt and found something better than gold. He found her, and she stayed behind.